Okay, gentlemen, welcome back. This is the third and final mission in RBSkalds B-wing training series. And the situation is that we have to defend the Mon Calamari cruiser Liberty from an Imperial ambush. And we basically go up against a Star Destroyer. A Star Destroyer and a lot of capital ships. There's a lot of capital ships. It's actually a pretty big battle because Rebel Starfighters come in and reinforce you. I think there's like 3 different squadrons that come in to support you. So it's a pretty big battle. And I'm not sure, like, is this like valid to be part of a training series? Because this is one of the harder missions that I've played, like, overall. And I actually had to disable all my difficulty modifiers for the first time ever on my channel. You're gonna see me play X-Wing without any mechanical changes. We've got the normal energy system, no remove debuff firepower. So yeah, I really like this mission. It was really enjoyable because we get to go up against a Star Destroyer. Now the trick to this one is that it's very deceptive, which is what makes it so hard. Is that the Star Destroyer is the least of your concerns. As you can see, the position of the Liberty compared to the Star Destroyer is that the Mon Cal cruiser is below the Star Destroyer, so the Star Destroyer only has like 4 cannons that can shoot it. That, combined with the fact that the Star Destroyer doesn't move, doesn't like actively pursue the cruiser, makes it the least of your concerns because it doesn't actually output that much damage. What is important is the Corvettes and the Frigate that's about to hyperspace in after this. There's 4 main threats to the cruiser. It's the Destroyer, the 4 Corvettes here, the Frigate, and then TIE bombers, which will launch from the Destroyer. So the most efficient way to do this is to just knock out the forward cannons on the Star Destroyer. There's only 2 that you really need to hit, 2 at the very front of the Star Destroyer. What you've seen me here do is that I wanted to prove to everyone, just to show that the B-wing is pretty strong, alright? So I just straight up disabled the Star Destroyer and solved the problem that way. It's not the most efficient because to destroy the 2 cannons, you only need to hit the cannons with like 2 salvos from a B-wing blasters. You don't need to expend any torpedoes. To disable the Star Destroyer as I did, you need to expend 6 torps combined with your ion cannons. So that's the trade-off there, and you actually really kind of need the torps to deal with the Frigate, and I'll come and explain that a little on later. But yeah, I really enjoyed this mission just because it's how big it is. But it also was a little bit disappointing to me because you finally got to see the limitations of the game engine itself as to what it can and what it can't do. And yeah, well, I'll get to explain that in a second here. But yeah, the 4 main threats you need to deal with is just knock out the Star Destroyer cannons, deal with the Corvettes. The Frigate is the hardest of all 4. Taking out the bombers is pretty easy so long as you keep good situational awareness and keep track of when they spawn in and just go straight for them. You'll have no problems taking them out before they start launching torpedoes. The problem with the Frigate, right, is that for some reason, and I think I figured out why, but the Frigate is more powerful than the Mon Cal cruiser. Because I played this mission about 8-9 times now, and of course I played it with like different modifiers, so the first 4 attempts were with the balance energy and the remove firepower debuff. That one was completely terrible. I'm not entirely sure if it can be completed with those 2. I got pretty close, so I think if you are like, you know, elite 0.1% fighter pilot ace, you should be able to accomplish this mission under those difficulty settings, but I'm not gonna try and attempt it anymore. But yeah, this Frigate right here, it can outdo the Mon Cal cruiser. Now granted, the cruiser at this point is like low on its shields, right? Because it's already taken fire from the Corvettes and the Destroyer. And if you get the Destroyers, if you disable the Destroyer, knock out the cannons, and then knock out the Corvette's cannons, you can preserve a decent amount of the shield. I think you can get like 30% of the shield on the Mon Cal cruiser. You can preserve that for this fight with the Frigate here. But the problem is, you can see here, this is when I started noticing the problems with the game itself, as why is it outdated, is that the Frigate can single-handedly knock out the cruiser, which shouldn't be the case, because a Mon Cal cruiser is a pretty tough opponent, right? I mean, it technically in the lore, it can out one-on-one a Star Destroyer if it needed to. And a frigate, compared to a Star Destroyer, it's much weaker. It's a much smaller class of starship. But as you can see here, if you pay attention, and I noticed this because I played it 9 times, the frigate has no problems just one-on-oneing the Mon Cal cruiser. It can dish out more damage and it can take more damage, which shouldn't be the case. So this is the part where it found disappointing because, as you can tell, this is why you needed the extra torps to try and alpha damage the frigate here, so you can knock it out faster. And therefore, it gives you more leeway in terms of health on the cruiser for it to survive in case you miss some bombers in the next wave that comes in to attack you. But yeah, X-Wing is not designed for fleet combat. The balancing between all of the capital ships, it's not really there. You can see here the amount of fire on the bottom right side of the screen compared to the Mon Cal cruiser, and if you can see the amount of damage that we're putting into the shields on this frigate. I mean, we've got like 3-4 starfighters and the cruiser, and we are just barely taking down the shields on this frigate. Yeah, it goes to show like that there's a massive imbalance in terms of the capital ship combat, because the game wasn't designed for that. The game was designed for much smaller engagements between just a handful of craft. So it's just almost purely starfighter versus starfighter combat. And then we had the strategic assets like the capital ships. They play like, you know, the objectives, like you need to disable this or you need to get out of here or that. If you're a very good player, you can just single-handedly win against the capital ships as a starfighter, because that's how the game is designed. It's all designed around the starfighters themselves. So the reason why I find it disappointing is because I wanted a Battle of Scarif scenario, because I recently, I think a week ago, showcased the stress test mission where we put the game with like 20, 25, 30 capital ships all duking out with each other, and we demonstrated that the game engine can, with the current technology, the current way XWVM is made, we can sustain that many assets now, which wasn't possible with the original game engine. But the problem is that even if you did do that, I don't think it would be a fun mission at all, because as we demonstrated here, trying to balance the mission to have a fleet engagement, I don't think it's going to work out. Well, it will work in the sense that you will be able to play the game, but I don't think it will be very fun, because in this mission here, you can see all the steps that Skald had to do in order to make it work. So for example, the countermeasure cruiser had to be positioned in such a way that it didn't take the full brunt of the Star Destroyer. And the Star Destroyer also has to be, like, relatively speaking, stationary to not pursue, because otherwise the cruiser is not going to survive at all. And then for the Corvettes, 4 Corvettes against Mon Cal cruiser shouldn't be much of a problem for the cruiser, but it was, because all 4 of them can output far more damage, and they were able to sustain far more damage than what it should be. By should be, I mean I'm talking like, you know, lore-wise. Now remember, this is all the expanded universe lore, because the game was made back in the 90s. So I'm not entirely sure if they've like changed power levels since the rewriting of the lore. I don't think that is the case, because the Mon Cal cruiser is iconic. There's no way they're gonna be able to, you know, make it drastically that much different in like how they were supposed to, like, you know, write battles in comic books or books themselves. So that's all I'm working with here, but it should not have been this close a run with how it was. And going back to the frigate, I showcased there how the power disparities are between those 2 capital ships. And finally, when you get to the TIE bombers here, now you're not going to see the demonstration of the bombers here because they don't get all their salvos off. I managed to intercept them here because I know they're coming. But it only takes like 1 wave of TIE bombers if they empty all their torps and the cruiser's gone. So that's another aspect there. You can see that if you try to make a large-scale battle, the balance just isn't there. Now I don't know if it's possible to change the stats on the starships. I haven't seen anyone do that. The only real mechanical change I've seen that is possible is the energy management system. That's probably like the most biggest mechanical change that the devs showcased that was possible. yeah, that's what I found after my 9 attempts to be the disappointing part. There's nothing disappointing about the mission itself. I mean, I had a ton of fun playing this because it was a brand new mission and no one had played it before, and it was up to me to go figure it out. There's no guide to it. I purposely didn't like look at the hints that Skald put out before completing the mission myself. So I had a lot of fun like trying to figure it out. But at the same time, as I said, you can see where the limitations are with such an old game engine, and the way that people design missions for games back then is sort of like similar to old arcade kind of games, like how do I say? It's all designed around like levels, right? It's not a war game, because that's the thing that whenever I try to talk to people is that I come from a different background in the games that I play. I mainly play war games, and a lot of them are all mainly multiplayer. And in war games, usually you have two types of scenarios. You have scenarios where you try to reenact a battle, and sometimes if it's like, for example, the Battle of the Bulge, the Germans are not going to win. But there are certain things that people try to play out to see whether or not they can outdo certain aspects at a tactical level that couldn't be done in real life. But then at the same time, you have other scenarios where it's a little bit more close-run engagement, and then you try to figure out, like, maybe if we had done something differently, we could come up with a different outcome. I tried to do that here by disabling the Star Destroyer, and it worked out for me. But as a player, I'm not rewarded for thinking out of the box like that, because I'm actually a little bit punished, because you really do kind of need, if you're not as good a pilot, you need those extra torpedoes to deal faster with the frigate in the event that your cruiser took more damage than happened here in my playthrough. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that I realized once playing through this mission here. But yeah, it's pretty much all I had to say about that. But I think, you know what, I will try again the mission with my normal difficulty modifiers just to see and prove that it can be done with the balanced energy system and the firepower debuff remove. It will be very hard, because like for this mission it was already hard as it was. I think the main trick really is with the Corvettes. Just go for the turrets on the Corvettes, because you only need 2 salvos from 3 blaster bolts of the B-wing to knock out the upper turret on the Corvette. And once you do that, the Corvettes don't maneuver, remember? So you don't need to be too concerned with the Corvettes remaneuvering to get their lower turret firing. And that doesn't happen. It's all been scripted. As I've said, the same with the destroyer as well. So that's the way it is there. So yeah, we've survived the TIE bombers at this point here. We've knocked them all out. The cruiser is about to get to the hyperspace point. An interesting thing that happened with this specific run through here is that B-wing Red just bails on you the moment you wipe out all the starfighters on the board, which is kind of bad, because at that point when they hyperspaced out, the bombers then started spawning in. So I kind of would have liked their help, but with wingmen in this game, they don't really play that big of a factor. The player himself has enough power to basically one-on everything in the mission. Wingmen don't really play that big a part. But yeah, that's my playthrough of the final mission here for RBSkalds training series. I had a lot of fun.